experiences. That's what we're going to be talking about today, right? Let's talk about experiences. By the way, before I go any further, if there are any children watching right now, this video is not for children. I say that again. This video is not for children. The experiences that I will express and the viewpoint that I will express here today, this content is in no way suitable for children. So I'll give you a moment to get away from the children. Don't just walk away from them, make sure they're safe. Now, this is in response to something that I got on this app Nextdoor, right? Someone trying to tell me how I should respond as a person of color to a certain situation where I was almost shot and killed by the police. Here's the thing, white people, stop trying to take the experience away from black people. Just stop, right? Let me share something with you guys about my experience, right? And I'm gonna do a few series like this so people can actually get to know my story, right? And get to know how it is I got to the place where I'm at in my life as of today. We're gonna start off in the beginning, the very, very beginning. Buckle up and settle in because you may not be ready for this, right? 6 months old. My father, black man, right? My mother, Puerto Rican woman, living in Oakland in the 70s, 80s. I'm born October 29, 1987. When I was born, my mother was addicted to crack cocaine, heroin, and alcohol. The same with my father. I was born with, at the time, what they called fetal alcohol syndrome, right? Addicted to heroin, opiates, and to crack cocaine. In the 80s, they called us crack babies. Being born already addicted is hard enough trying to kick as a child because you're not the one who took your first hit for you. Someone else did. Some people say that with addiction, nobody decided to take the first hit but you, being the addict. Sorry, I can't agree. I made a decision later on in life to stop using drugs, but I fiended for them my whole life because it was already set into me. It was already ingrained in me, in my system. My brain chemistry was already different because of the effect that these substances had on me at this point already. Being addicts, the relationship that my mother and father had was very toxic. Living in Oakland, in East Oakland, and getting loaded. My father, a vet, fought for his country, saw a lot of stuff he probably couldn't forget about. We can call it PTSD, we can call it substance abuse, whatever the case may be, right? He had his own demons that he was fighting, right? And while he was trying to fight those demons, he took it out on the woman who had his children that he was supposed to be taking care of, and he would beat the shit out of her daily or whenever he got the chance. And see, I wouldn't know until years and years and years later the sacrifice that my mother made so that me and my brother could actually have a chance at living. So when I was 6 months old, my mom gave me and my brother up into the system. And growing up, like, I thought it was because she didn't love us. I was told that she left us in a basket on, somebody's porch. That was one story. Another story I heard was that she left us on top of a dumpster at a gas station. One other time they told us that she took us to McDonald's and left us on the counter, right? And took her food and walked away like she forgot us, right? I heard different stories. I heard that she sold us for crack, right? Being a child, growing up, and just looking for some type of reasoning as to why I'm always with these different people and none of them are my parents, right? And they always look different than me. Like, I was looking for a reason. And so what ended up happening for me is, like, I built this resentment at a very, very young age because I felt like she gave us up and she didn't care about us. And not only did she give us up, but she gave us up to a place that was so abusive and so hurtful. The lady in the car behind me is like tripping out. So I'm on the street right now in Alameda, headed to the freeway. It's Cleveland, and it used to not have stop signs at every corner, but now it does. And I don't think she realizes that yet because it's so new, but she just thinks that I keep stopping randomly, and she's just like waving me off like, come on, man, like, what's going on? It's funny. But anyway, so at the tender age of 6 months old, me and my brother, who's 11 months older than me, we end up in this foster home, right? And as early as I can remember, the age of 4, right, we were abused, neglected. At 4 and 5 years old, I didn't think anything was wrong that they were doing to us. I didn't think it was wrong that, like, if I put my shoes on the wrong feet, that they would beat us with canes and extension cords and chairs and whatever they could get their hands on, right? I didn't realize that, like, it was wrong. They weren't supposed to be doing that. Like, that was child abuse. I didn't know that. I thought that just happened when you did something wrong and that it happened to all kids. I didn't know that as early as I can remember, 4 years old, it was not right for a grown man to take you into the garage and to sexually abuse you every single day. My earliest experiences and memories are of me trying to hide in my closet, in my bedroom, because I knew that when he got home at night, he would come right to my bed to come and get me and take me in the garage, and it always hurted, and I didn't want that to happen to me. This may be very explicit for some people, and some people may not want to hear this, but the truth of the matter is, right, is like there are a lot of children in the system, right, and the culture has changed over time, but still I hear occasion where children are saying that they're being hurt and adults aren't listening to them. And that was my experience. My experience was being physically and sexually abused every single day. And like, finally, like, one day when I was like 7, like, I remember being at the babysitter's house, right? And I was playing with this little girl. Her name was Beth. And I had a bruise, and she was like, where'd you get that bruise at? And I was like, oh, like, the day before I had fallen off the swing. It was one of those rare occasions they let us go in the backyard, me and my brother, and play on the swing, and I fell off, and I had scraped my knee. And when we went inside, when I ran inside and cried about it, right, like, they were like, you shouldn't be playing like that, and then I got a beating. This wasn't a whooping. There's a difference between whipping and just beating the shit out of a kid. Broken bones, fractures, no care in the world about how you're treating this child. And so I told her, like, oh, I fell off the swing. So, Mrs. Such and Such, Mrs. McHenry, I'm gonna say her name, she did. hit me because I fell off the swing, and I was like, your mom doesn't hit you when you do something bad? And she was like, it's not bad if you fall off the swing. My mom never hits me, right? And I was like, what? I was like, well, does your mom ever take you into the garage? And she was like, yeah, when it's time to get in the car, or when we have to get something out the freezer, or I want to get some of my toys that she put away. And I was like, your mom doesn't take you into the garage and touch you in your no-no places? And she was like, no, that's nasty. And I was like, wait. So, like, I was young and I didn't really quite understand still yet, but I understood enough to know that, like, to get clarity that what was happening to me was wrong and it shouldn't have been happening. And mind you, my earliest memory is 4 years old of that happening, and it happened every single day until I was 8 years old. And so what ended up happening was, like, early on in my childhood, they deemed me as a problem child. Right? They deemed me as a problem child. They put me on a handful of medications, you know, Seroquel, Prozac, Wellbutrin, all of these different psychotropic medications, right? I had so many problems that I needed help with. And I realized today that they only put me on these medications because I got to a point where I had told so many adults what was happening to me and they didn't listen, that I stopped being able to, like, I stopped trusting. When I was 7 years old, I can remember the day that it happened. I was 7 and I was in this, like, treatment school for kids that were, like, troubled kids, right? And Mr. McHenry had came home one night and he was drunk the night before, and I had tried hiding under my bed so that he wouldn't be able to find me. And he came in and he grabbed me out of my bed and he dragged me into the garage, right? And he raped me over and over and over again all night. Like, I hadn't even slept that night. And by the time all was said and done, like, I was bleeding and I couldn't sit down. Once again, I said, this isn't for children. Some of y'all not gonna like this. This is gonna sadden some of y'all. Some of y'all not gonna believe it because you're gonna be like, that's crazy. Nobody would ever do that. Welcome to the real world. Some white people will watch this and be like, yeah, you just want attention. Listen, this is my experience. It's not yours. I don't have a problem with you having your experience. This is just mine. So he caught himself putting me in a tub of scalding hot water an hour before I was supposed to get on the bus to go to this little program. And I remember getting there, right, and all the kids were sitting down having snacks, and the teacher or the person who was there to watch us, she was like, Vincent, sit down, because I was literally kind of like hovering over the seat using my hands to hold myself up. But I didn't want to stand up because I didn't want to look weird in front of all the other kids, like I was trying to be special, right? And she was like, Vincent, can you sit down? And I was like, no. And she was like, why not? And I was like, because it hurts. And she was like, what hurts? And I said, my butt hurts. And she said, okay, Vincent, that's not funny, because all the kids started laughing, right? She felt put on the spot, probably, I don't know, right? I just know that I said, you know, it really, really hurts because they've been hurting me and they've been touching me, and I can't sit down because when I sit down, it really hurts. And she was like, Vincent, if you don't stop making those, if you don't stop telling those lies, like, I'm gonna have to take you to the timeout room, right? By this time, I was in a day program for troubled kids, and if you acted out in any kind of way, they would put you in what was called a quiet room. Well, right? It was a room with a little door, with a metal steel door, right? And it was padded. And they would put you in this room and they would lock the door and they would leave you there for like an hour or two or longer until you cried or screamed yourself out. They called it having a blowout. And it couldn't be heard by anybody else around. This is what programs used to do. Do they still do it? I can't confirm or deny, right? So I was like, but I'm not lying. And she's like, Vincent, Like, you got to be quiet and sit down. And I was like, I'm not sitting down, right? And so she was like, okay, let's go to the quiet room. So she grabbed me and she took me to the quiet room and she locked me in there. And I remember something breaking inside of me. I'm 7 years old and I remember something breaking inside of me, right? And I remember sitting in there and I remember crying, wondering why nobody believed me about the stuff that I was going through, why nobody would listen to me and why they kept letting them hurt me, right? And so I internalized that. And the next day when I came back to school, mind you, that day I went home with the progress report, and when my foster mom read the progress report about what I had said, she got extremely upset and hit me in the head with a bottle of Lysol. Pow, right in my head. And like I was bleeding. And I remember standing in the bathroom, right? And she's cleaning my wound up on my head. And she's like, she sounds like she's trying to be nice, but she's like, see, you shouldn't tell lies like that to people. You can get people in trouble. And she's like, and if you ever tell a lie like that again, I will kill you. I didn't want to die. I'm a kid. So the next day, when I went to school, or when I went to the program, we had like a little recess, and this girl, Beth, walked up to me, and she was a friend of mine, right? And she said, hey, Vince. And I was like, hey. And she said, are you serious when you say that they're hurting you? And I said, yeah, I'm serious when I say that they're hurting me. She said, well, she said, if I was you, I would call 911. And I was like, what's that? And she said, that's the police. My mom and my dad tell me if anybody ever hurts you to call 911. And I was like a light bulb went on. I was like, oh my gosh, I could do that. And I was like, that will help. And she was like, yeah, they'll come and they'll take them to jail if they're bad people. Then I was like, oh, I'm going to call 911. How do I do that? And she said, you just press 911 on the phone. And I remember getting home that day and I was so excited. I was so excited. I got home and me and my brother were playing on the stairs, right? The rest of the kids, because there was like 8 of us kids in this house. We were all foster youth. And I remember telling my brother, like, hey, go get the phone. And he was like, for what? And I was like, I'm going to call the police. And he was like, for what? And I said, because they keep hurting us. And Beth told me that if people hurt you, to call the police and they'll go to jail and it will stop. This next part is for those, right, that want to tell people of color that are not black or people of color how to deal with the police when the police respond to any situation. This is for you. Listen real closely. So what ends up happening is that my brother grabs the phone. We put it on the stairs, right? This is an old school landline with a long cord. And I pick up the line and I press 911, right? And it rings once. The operator comes on, or the dispatcher comes on, and she says, Union City 911 emergency. And I said, hi, like, we need help. They're hurting us. And she said, well, where are you at? How old are you? And I got scared and I hung up the phone. I wasn't playing on the phone. This wasn't a joke. This was actuality. Like, we're on the stairs and I still can't sit down. Right? Like, I'm still hurting. I'm still bleeding. So, like, my brother took the phone and he put it back inside the bedroom. And he's like, what happened? And I said, I got scared. I hung up. And he was like, oh, they're never going to help us. And I'm like, I'm sorry. 10 minutes later, we're still on the stairs, and the doorbell rings. The doorbell rings, Mrs. McHenry's like, I wonder who this could be, right? I wonder who this is, right? She goes to the door. She answers the door. It's Union City Police. A young white cop, right? She says, what seems to be the problem? He says, well, we got a 911 emergency call from this address. And it sounded like a kid. And they said that they were being hurt, but they hung up. And in my head, I'm thinking, I never told them where we live. Like, how did they, oh my gosh, like, what's going to happen? But also, like, I'm thinking, this is it. They're going to help us. Like, this isn't going to happen anymore. I'm 7. I'm like, this isn't going to happen anymore. This has to stop today. Yay, we're saved. My brother's looking at me. He's worried. I'm worried, right? And he said, do you have any children here, ma'am? And Miss McHenry said, yes, we have. This is a foster home. We have 11 foster youth here, right? And he was like, well, did one of, your youth call us? And she said it had to be Vincent or Willie. And so she turned around and she saw us standing on the stairs peeking down, and she was like, y'all come down here. And so we went downstairs, and we're standing in front of this cop and Miss McHenry, and she goes, which one of y'all called the police? Right? And I raised my hand. I was like, I did. Right? I felt some courage, because this is a cop. I see he has a gun. He has a badge. He looks official. He's going to help us. And I said, I did. And he leans down and he said, well, young man, why did you call us? And I said, because they keep hurting us. And they won't stop hurting us, and it hurts. And he had concern in his eye. Like, it looked like he had a real concern in his eye, right? And he stood up. He kind of looked at Willie for a minute, looked at me, looked us up and down. He turned to Mrs. McHenry and he said, ma'am? And she said, these kids are troubled. They're on medications and they go to special schools. And he was like, well, why do they have the bruises on their body that they do? And he was like, or she was like, they fight each other like cats and dogs. They fight each other all day. It's a hassle trying to keep them apart so they don't tear each other's throats out. She's lying. Me and my brother didn't fight like that. We were all we had. The last thing we were worried about was fighting with each other, with everything else that was going on around us. But see, when she said that, it cast us in the light of being troubled youth. Right? And I remember the cop was like, I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. And he looked down at me and he said, young man, you shouldn't call the police and make false reports. You shouldn't lie. He said, because you can get people in trouble by lying. He said, but also, like, you can get in trouble for lying as well. He said, please don't do that again. Like, we really have people we need to help. And again, like, I felt like something broke inside me. Right then and there, at the age of 7, I decided that the police were the enemy. See, I didn't make this decision when I was an adult. My concept of the authorities shifted greatly once I, like, started growing up. The older I got, right? So, like, I don't demonize the police or anything, because for everyone that's bad, they're not all bad. They need more training. They're only doing what they know how to do best, right? I don't agree with it still. But at the tender age of 7, like, something snapped in me and I was like, you know what? Fuck the police. I'm never calling the police again. They didn't help us. He gave me a little sticker that was a badge and he said, you know what? Like, I'm going to make you an honorary officer for the day. And like, he gave me the little badge, and I remember he gave my brother one, and my brother put it on his shirt. He was happy about it, and I was disgusted. I didn't want to be caught dead with this badge. I would never think about calling 911 again to ask for help, right? And like, the most unfortunate part of that circumstance is, like, as soon as he walked out and she closed the door, she watched him through the blinds as he got in his car. And as soon as he pulled off, I got the worst beating I ever got from her. She didn't send me to school for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. Because she didn't want people to see the marks and the scars and the bruises that she had left on me. The welts that I had all over my body from this extension cord. The welts that I had across my face. We're talking about experiences here. We're talking about a child who was so broken and so used for so long, and then when he tried to call the authorities to seek help, couldn't get help to save his life. And I would go through this and this placement and many more for a long time. And every time something would happen and the police would come, I would be deemed a troubled youth. When we're talking about experiences and what people have been through in their life, how they should respond to the police, what they should do. Like I said in an earlier video, if you're not black, you can't tell a person of color how to respond when it comes to the police. See? And it's not because I have a bias. It's not because I don't believe in law enforcement. It's simply because I know from my own experience, like, what it is I need to do when interacting in a situation like what happened last Tuesday. Somebody on Nextdoor said that this isn't a race thing. You know, unfortunately, you would like to believe that it's not, but it is. And the reason why I know that it's a race thing is because 2 other officers showed up at the scene after they detained me and Rachel. One of them was black. And while I was expressing how I felt about the situation that had happened and what had gone down, I watched this black man go through this host of emotions, right? And I can acknowledge that he must have been feeling like, damn, I wish I was here because this wouldn't have happened like this. So when you say that CHP was just responding because they got reports of a man with a gun, no, they didn't get reports of a man with a gun. They got reports of a black man waving a gun at a white man. Some people don't want to acknowledge that white privilege exists, but it really does. If I was to call the police and say that a white man was waving a gun in my face, the response is not going to be the same. They're going to be like, sir, are you okay? What's his description? Oh, he's a white man. He's 5'9". Okay, and you, sir? I'm black. I'm 5'7". Right? Leading questions that they use to gauge the necessity for response. So this black officer looked at me apologetically because I was like I was standing there and I was like, damn, y'all could really, like, a white man could really call the police on me and lie and say I had a gun and y'all can almost kill me. I was like, y'all kept telling me every time, right, like to turn around, and every time I would go to turn around, you would threaten to kill me. I said, I count, and you threatened to shoot me in the head 7 times when I was trying to follow your orders. See, it is a race thing because I hate to say this, right? But Rachel is white. And Rachel was able to reach in her back pocket and grab her phone and start recording, right? If I would have acted like I was going to reach behind me, or if I would have flinched just a little bit, I would have been dead. So it's not a race thing, it is a race thing. That's exactly what it is. It's not black people that are making it a race thing, it's the authorities. Experiences. I'm proud to be the person that I am. I'm proud to be the man that I am. I am a proud black man. People comment, right? One person dropped in to Instagram on somebody else's Instagram and was like, I have a friend that works with the company, and she said that he was following people around and he was threatening people and he made her feel very uncomfortable and this and that. And here's something that I know to be true as well. White privilege is real, and white privilege will lie at any point to save face. Sorry to say, but like all of these people were Hispanic men. There was not one woman on that crew. But see, to try to discredit someone would just as soon say that they're lying and that they're harassing women, right, to try to save face. Countless people drop in the next door, right, and say things like, haven't you learned anything in the last couple of years about defying the police? Countless white people. Experiences, y'all. At the hardest time in my life, when I was being used, basically a sex slave, as a child with grown men every single day for years, when I would try to call the authorities to tell them I was being hurt, a white cop can show up and have a child tell them that they're being hurt and that they don't want to be hurt anymore. And a white cop can just as soon turn around and be like, don't lie. That's not good. What does that do to someone? What does that do to someone? Listen, like I said, I'm purely sharing my experience, what I've been through, what I know. Right? And let me acknowledge this, for as much as I share, I acknowledge that my experience are both not unique. Right? I experienced that. I'm not the only person that has gone through some stuff like this. Right? Not everybody's experience is the same either. I acknowledge that. I don't deny it in any way. I have family who were police, who were law enforcement. Beautiful people, great people, admirable people. I know law enforcement today that are wonderful people, right? That are trying to change the culture, right, of the black and blue. But it's just like with construction, there is a culture that comes along with policing. A culture that tells people, if you are POC, a person of color, then you must be doing something wrong if they say you're doing something wrong. Some would say that's how they respond to reports of someone with a gun. Sorry. There are tons and tons of videos you can see on YouTube that show the response to someone who is POC in comparison to the response of someone who is white. There is no reason for me to have my hands up as far as I can possibly put them in the air and to have a cop tell me 7 times that they're going to kill me. When he says to turn around and I go to listen to his directive and I start to turn around slowly and he yells, "If you fucking move again, I will shoot you in the fucking head. I will kill you right now. Stop moving." Why are you moving? Because you just told me to turn around slowly. So, Mr. White Man, the question that I ask you is, what does defying the police look like if I'm following all of their directives and they still want to kill me? What am I supposed to do? I'm not upset. This is purely informative. See, because at the point that I'm at in my life today, I'm so proud of who it is I am that I cannot be upset. I no longer live in fear. I no longer allow outside forces to dictate the way that I feel and the way that I go about living my life, because we have been held back and have had a knee on our necks for far too long. What do I look like doing that? I have a beautiful life today, a life worth living. I'm a pansexual black man. It used to be something I was scared to say. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Because what I've learned is that for as much as we can try, there will always be someone who doesn't agree with how we look, how we smell, what we look like, what we do, where we come from, how we talk, what we wear, music we listen to. Somebody can look at you and decide they don't like you just because. And they've never met you. I used to allow things like that to dictate the way I felt and how I went about living my life, and I couldn't never really be happy. So for me, it means a lot to me that I can say today that regardless of the hate that still exists in the world, y'all can have that. Because I have something that outdoes that blows that out the water, and that's love. And see, it's not just the love that I get from other people, it's the love that I have for myself. I love myself enough today to know that I am worthy. That even though occasion like this can happen, like I am worthy, I am enough, and that I don't have to be afraid. I have full confidence in myself. I am in love with myself. It's not an ego or a narcissism thing. It's what happens when you start to realize that you matter. That coupled with the love and the compassion that I get from other people that I can appreciate. So listen, man, this was a lot. But I'm going to come back tomorrow with part 2. We're going to start talking about more experiences. So we ended at age 7 today. What happened at age 7? That situation with the police happened, right? Tomorrow, we'll continue on it. Y'all have questions or comments? Subscribe. Subscribe down below. Feel free to ask any question, right? I know some of y'all going to be ignorant and have some stupidity to say. So bring it on. I welcome it all, right? But if you have questions because you want to gain clarity, feel free to ask them. I'll answer them. Throw us a like, subscribe. Love you all. Appreciate you all for lending me your ear. And we'll talk to you soon. Experiences. The journey continues. Y'all have a good one.